Hi, Dusty Shell, Director with Usborne Books More, here to share some treasured fairy tales with you all. I'm going to start with these wonderful books that are relatively new to our catalog. We have 3 so far. They're called Peek Inside a Fairy Tale, and these are board books. And so they're really excellent for your toddlers or your early preschoolers. This is Little Red Riding Hood. We also have Cinderella and Beauty and the Beast. And I love that these have the little peekaboo covers, and they give, a simplified version of the classic tales, but not too simple. I love the illustrations. I think they're really detailed for board books. And this follows Little Red Riding Hood, and it even has a couple of flaps too to help encourage interaction with the story as she goes to find out what happened to her grandmother. We also have our fairy tales for bedtime, which features a few shorter versions of fairy tales to read before you tuck your kids at night. As you can see, it's got Cinderella, Goldilocks, Rapunzel, the 3 Wishes, the Elves and the Shoemaker, lots of great stories. Brightly illustrated, so you can really enjoy reading them to your child every night before they go to sleep. Have a couple of great picture books. I like these because they've got padded covers, so they're like just a step above a regular hardback book. And this is Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs. We also have Cinderella. We also have Little Red Riding Hood. And they tell the story with a little bit, they follow more closely the original stories rather than the Disney-fied versions. And that makes them more endearing to me because, everybody's familiar with Disney. But sometimes the stories are just a little bit different. And again, great pictures in these books to really engage your children and talk about what's happening in the stories. Well, like I said, here's Snow White. I'll give you a little glimpse into this one really quick too. Is she meeting the dwarves? And she fell asleep from the apple. And then finally, I'm going to share 3 books from my favorite series, the Illustrated Collection. First is Illustrated Fairy Tales. And these are all soft hardbacks with ribbon bookmarks. And this one has a lot of the same stories that were in the fairy tales for bedtime, but they're a little bit more advanced for your reader. And it's Sleeping Beauty, Beauty and the Beast, The Dragon Painter, The Frog Prince. You might be familiar with some of these stories, or you might be reading them for the first time. And this is called the Illustrated Collection because even though the language is slightly more complicated than our other storybooks, they still include really awesome illustrations to go along with the stories, and you can see how thick it is, so you get lots of bang for your buck there. But we also have in these Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tales and Grimm's fairy tales, and if you're a fairy tale lover, this is going to excite you because it's hard to find great quality in these sometimes without paying, a pretty penny for the copy. And this has the Emperor's New Clothes and Thumbelina and the Little Mermaid and the Emperor and the Nightingale and the Tinderbox and the Snow Queen. So, it's not Frozen, but you can see the story that it was inspired by as you read it to your child, as Hans Christian Andersen told. And again, this one has a little bit fewer illustrations than the regular fairy tale one, but they are still there and they are still just as beautiful. And then I'll give you a little sneak peek into Grimm's. We all know the Grimm's brothers had a special way of putting twists on their stories. So these are always just a different take on things. Hansel and Gretel, the 12 Dancing Princesses, the Elves and the Shoemaker, and Snow White as the Grimm brothers told the stories. Definitely a good item to put on your shelves if you're a collector of fairy tales. I just know that if you watch this that you found something that will really appeal to anyone in your family that loves fairy tales. And if you have any further questions, don't hesitate to ask.